Imagine this. You're an educator tasked with creating an engaging, informative online knowledge clip. You sit down to start planning, and you're suddenly overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of decisions to be made. What content to include? How should it be delivered? And how to visualize it? How can you make it engaging yet efficient for learning? Sounds familiar? Well, you're not alone. Many of us grapple with these challenges. But the good news is we have some scientifically proven tricks up our sleeve to ease this process. Before we dive into these, we will have a quick look at the psychology behind video learning. Because understanding cognitive processes involved in video learning will provide us with a deeper insight into these guidelines and why they are so important. Don't worry, it's very simple. Learning requires mental effort. However, our brain has limits on how much effort it can put into learning from a video. First, it needs to put effort into identifying the information it is supposed to process. Then, it needs to put effort into comprehending the information, which depends on the content complexity. And finally, it needs to put effort into processing the information to remember them. So when creating a video, we want to make it easy to identify the information we want to convey, assist in comprehending the information, and engage students into processing that information. This ensures that students can spend all their effort into the learning process without being overwhelmed. Now, let's see how we can do that. Have you ever tried spicing up your educational content with fancy backgrounds, fun trivia, or stunning visuals? Although well-intentioned, such additions can often be distracting, leading away from the main topic and overloading cognitive capacities. Think of your lesson as a desk. A cluttered desk makes it more challenging to find what you need. A cleaned, well-organized desk makes it easier to find what you need. It's the same with your content. Removing distractors leaves students with more capacity to understand and process the information effectively. However, this does not mean that we should remove everything that is not in the absolute focus. Sometimes we need to display several things at the same time because we want to show connection between different concepts. This is where the next principle comes into play. We can effectively guide students' attention by simply highlighting the information we are referring to. This way, we avoid students wasting mental effort into searching for the information we're referring to. This can have tremendous benefits on students' learning, especially when presenting complex graphics or tables. Without signaling, students can easily lose focus and get swamped by the amount of information. But remember, it's not about turning your slides into a Las Vegas billboard. Overdoing signals can also be distracting. Think of it more like a flashlight that sheds light from one piece of information to the next. This principle refers to the importance of keeping things together that belong together, in time and in space. Just because there's a lot of space on your slide does not mean that you should fill it with too many visuals. When related information is not presented close together, students can struggle with connecting the dots. And the same goes for timing. Showing an interesting graphic that you will refer to later is not a teaser, but it's distracting for students. Make sure to keep related information close together on your slide, as well as present only the things that you're referring to. And how can we make sure that students also comprehend our learning material? This is a bit more difficult, but there are some things we can do to make it as easy as possible to our students. Well-structured material is much easier to understand. The goal is to break the lecture into bite-sized, manageable chunks. This allows learners to engage with one concept at a time, at their own pace, before moving on to the next. This makes comprehension much easier than when explaining several concepts in an intertwined manner where students do not know if one concept is concluded or that it keeps coming back. But remember, while segmenting is important, there needs to be a logical flow between segments. The segments should not be isolated islands of information, but rather stepping stones that guide learners along a coherent path. Another way to make our bite-sized chunks more digestible is to ensure that students are familiar with the fundamentals. Think of a chef preparing a meal. First, he prepares all the ingredients, chopping the veggies, measuring spices, preheating the oven. This allows the cooking process to flow smoothly. Doing that for videos as well makes them easier to understand. So repeating fundamental names or concepts before diving into advanced topics. This ensures smooth comprehension for all of your students. A common mistake we see is that educators assume that students internalized everything they were taught before. But they often don't. And when that is the case, students can quickly feel disengaged and lost. But don't overdo it. Explaining very simple concepts might make students think they already know everything and that they will follow. And they will lose their attention. Finally, let's have a look at how we can help students internalize our learning materials. The key is to keep students' engagement high during a video. Here are a few things we can do. One way to increase student engagement is personalization. It's a myth that educational videos must be serious and overly formal. Just like a conversation with a friend is more engaging than listening to a newscaster. A conversational tone in a video can affect your students in the same way. Applying this principle makes your video feel more relatable, raising your students' motivation to engage in the learning process. But the key here is to be natural and authentic. Trying too hard to stimulate a casual language or even slang might not hit the right note with everyone. Another way to keep students engaged is through generative activities. Breaks between segments with thought-provoking questions or quick activities can improve learning outcomes. These pauses offer students a chance to reflect on what they've learned, or they may even prompt them to realize that they've missed something important, often resulting in rewinding the video or more attention on subsequent segments. In summary, we've unveiled 3 key principles to lighten students' cognitive load when identifying information. Coherence ensures a clean and distraction-free presentation. Signaling guides attention to the essentials, and contiguity ensuring the right timing and positioning of information. To aid comprehension, we have segmenting, which breaks the content into logical and manageable chunks, and also pre-training, which reinforces prior knowledge. To motivate students, we use personalization to adopt a conversational language and generative activities to offer active learning opportunities. By adhering to these guidelines, you can create evidence-based video lectures that optimize the learning outcomes of your students.